Hello, we are live. Awesome. Oh, it looks like I didn't get on LinkedIn tonight. Whoops. Oh, well, it's fine. Hi there. I'm Marcy Billen. I'm a real estate agent here in the Oklahoma City metro. Sorry, that was kind of the intro for my other videos. That's weird. Anyway, I am a resident here in Norman. I got this piece of paper. I got to move. I'm a resident here in Norman, Oklahoma, and a couple of times a month I get on here and we talk about something that has to do with Oklahoma. Usually we're talking about real estate because I am, of course, a real estate agent. So I'm really glad that you guys have joined us for this. Sorry if I'm talking quietly. I feel like I did a lot of talking today, a lot of time on YouTube, which is great. Me moving my mic around to see which spot is going to be best. I think this one. So the all right. Hopefully you can hear me. It looks like my mic is back. There we go. All right, we're back with the mic. Very good. So the topic of tonight's video is about how great Norman is. I live here and I make a lot of videos about Norman itself. I have a few different playlists and stuff that are all about Norman, and I'm learning all the time what you want to know about the town. So I'll be a little more specific in this video about Norman than I am in my other videos that you guys watch, and it's not just me streaming and talking, right? So, yeah. And I know that we may not have as big of an audience tonight because it is election day night, whatever. My husband, I think, is in there watching some footage of the election, and maybe I shouldn't have had this live tonight, but it's fine. It's fine. We're going to do this. And I just want to give you some more insight on why Norman's great, and I'll probably mention some reasons why Norman's not so great also. So here we go. Got my drink in tonight. So this is a Topo Chico. And I drink a lot of these because I haven't been drinking as much alcohol. So these are my fun drink. And you may have noticed that I also rearranged my office here a little bit. I had to clean out my closet, which I know doesn't make a lot of sense, but I promise it does. I promise it does. So let's get started. If you have any questions, then I want to hear them. Please don't be shy. I want to see your questions, whether you're watching live or you're watching at a later time. I want to see your questions because I'm learning all the time what questions you guys have. So one of the first things here I want to talk about is the weather here in Norman. We had a crazy weekend of weather here. So it's November. Today is November 5th. I always say in my head, remember the 5th of November, because Guy Fawkes Day. It's fine. It's in England. It's not a big deal. We just talked about that a lot in school whenever I was in high school. So the weather. It had been like a bajillion degrees for the past month. Usually October is not super hot. Like it can be. It can be, 85, 90 degrees, which this October, just a few days ago, it was. We had an event last Sunday for Halloween for our clients, and I think it was supposedly 82, 83 degrees. I was sweating. It was horrendous. It felt horrendous. We were outside for a couple of hours and it was just awful. It's not supposed to be like that in October. It's supposed to be fall. Fall starts at the end of September, but we really didn't get that until, until 2 days ago. It's finally cooled off. So today I'm wearing a sweater. I'm so happy. I got to go on a walk this afternoon at 2:00, 2:30-ish, and I talked to my mom and walked outside, which I, like, haven't been able to do in the middle of the day ever because it's so hot, you just, like, sweat to death, and it's awful, and, like, the sun's beating down on you. So, I'm really, really grateful that it finally cooled down. So, right now, I have my window open. I feel like this just gives you a good idea of, like, what I'm talking about. So I have my window open. It is 57 degrees outside, 56. I have the window open mostly because, well, I like the cold air, but, like, my cats really like to watch outside, so you may see them jumping up and down in that window because they love to, like, watch people walk by, and because, now it's not daylight savings time anymore, so it's completely dark outside, and so I'm getting used to my light, here being a bit different also. So, it's 56 degrees outside. I usually leave the window open all night to sleep in that, but I like to sleep very cold. And then today, like, the wind was just blowing a little bit. I was wearing a sweater. I could have worn shorts. Like, a lot of people were still wearing shorts today. So that is just where we're at right now with November, unfortunately. So, yay. And we had storms this weekend. So thunderstorms with tornadic activity. So here's what happened. So this past weekend was the end of daylight savings, right? So I think the time goes back at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning. And so I was up. I had just woken up, like, just kind of like, oh, it's 2 a.m. I wasn't waking up for any reason. I just wake up at 2 a.m. typically to, like, just for a second and then I go back to sleep. But then I heard the tornado siren go off. And we had the window open. And so I was like, oh, that's really loud. And my cat scattered and I heard the tornado siren, and so I jumped up and Handsome jumped up because usually if our windows are shut, we can't hear it. We have to, like, rely more on our phones. And so we jumped up and went and we go and turn on the TV. Like, that's the first thing that you do. And we call it the like, I heard one of my friends say this today, but he's like, the JV team was on, meaning that our normal weather people were not on. It was like the weekend crew, so it was kind of strange that JV was in there for that. But tornadoes did touch down, not in Norman. There's a neighborhood in southeast Oklahoma City. They got hit really hard. Let me actually show you. Because all the election stuff is up. I just want to see. I just want to see the news. It's fine. Uh, let's see here. Mm. They just had this up and now they're like, oh, yeah, we're not talking about weather anymore. No big deal. Let me do this. There it is. All right, I'm going to share this with you. There we go. So let me make myself bigger, I guess. There we go. Here is some of the damage that happened. This is a little neighborhood in southeast Oklahoma City. They said a swarm of twisters. Wow, that's a really, like, literary thing to say. I like that. But did injure 11 people and damaged or destroyed 130 homes. I heard that 40 homes were destroyed in total. This is quite a few miles from my house. The tornado sirens went off and we were kind of like, that's so weird. Like, why would they go off? There's obviously not a tornado here, but it made sense after Handsome kind of listened to the weather. And we realized that it was, of course, dark. And then the tornadoes were also rain wrapped, meaning that it's just dark and rainy and you don't know what's a tornado and what isn't. There are definitely limbs down and things like that in different parts of Norman, but not very much. Like, we've had a lot worse before. It's not the first time that we've had, you know, tornadoes in November or even December, unfortunately. So as our climate heats up, we definitely see that. So, one thing to know, of course, is that tornadoes have to have heat. Like, it's got to be a little bit warm, and that's why tornadoes happen in the springtime. And my cat's sitting over here like, "Mom, who are you talking to? This is ridiculous." So the tornadoes have to have heat. So if it's cool, like they usually don't happen. But if we have that hot mixed with the cold, that's when the tornadoes actually happen. So that's weather in Oklahoma for you. And now it's finally cool and I can walk outside during the middle of the day. Yay. Whew. Very excited for that. All right, more things about Norman itself and why we like living here. So I've talked a lot about Norman being like a college community, right? People talk to me a lot about this. There's a ton of reasons why like the college community makes let me stop sharing this actually. It's got this stuff on the side. Oh, it's fine. There's a ton of reasons why Norman is a great spot to live, and that includes it having a college, but also like a lot of people don't like that too. And whenever people talk to me about moving here to Norman or someplace around, often we'll talk about what they want their days to look like, who they wanna be around, how many people they wanna be around, because Norman's not for everyone, but it's definitely a good spot if you want to have, like, access to a city with a lot of amenities. So I definitely tell a lot of people that. So I'll have people that call me and say like, "Hey, I really want, an acre and I really want like a nice house that's pretty new and I don't want a ton of neighbors or whatever." And I'll say, "Okay, I think we need to widen our search from Norman. Norman is expensive in terms of housing. You may have noticed that. It's pretty expensive, so we can go other places and find, some better deals that still give you really good access to Norman. Usually people come and talk to me about, like, Blanchard and Newcastle. It's really common. Blanchard is closer to Norman than, like, Newcastle is. It makes sense whenever you look at a map. Then I try to also, tell people about Newalla and also Noble. So those are 2 other towns that I often talk to people about if Norman may not be the right fit for living. Anyway, got on my realtor rant there for a second. Yay for realtor rants. So Norman is home to university. I'm going to share my screen. Sorry, that was probably really loud. And we're going to look at the map. Map, map, map. Spend a lot of time helping people and looking at maps. Let's get the Googles out. Google Maps. There we go. Fantastic. I'll probably make myself smaller here if I can. Okay. Here is Norman. Okay. So you can see where Norman is located. We have kind of this is like Old Town, the square here. There are homes on the left side or the west side. And then of course, there's a lot of homes out here too. So Norman's like this huge spot. Let me put it in here so that you can see. It's gonna pop up with, there we go. With this like dotted line around it. So you can see how large it is. This is one of my favorite things to look at here. Like, see this like little lasso? I love that. That's so funny to me. And then, so I just released a video this last week driving all the way down 12th Street, which was this street. And we drove by Belmar. So this is the dividing line between Norman and Moore. So Moore is going to be up here and Norman's going to be down here. Whoa, I just dropped a pin for somebody. Yay. And then, of course, this is the lake. And here's where Norman really jets up. into like Oklahoma City right here as well. Oh, I missed a comment. What do I think about HOAs? It's good to see you again, by the way, whatever your name is. I just know your YouTube name. So, HOAs, yes. A lot of people, a lot of my clients will call me and say, like, I don't want to live in an HOA. My first question for them is always like, what do you mean by HOA? What has been your past experience with an HOA? We do have a lot of HOAs here in Norman. And if that person is from California or Arizona, then I really, really question them on like what their past experience has been, because an Oklahoma HOA compared to a California HOA are two wildly different things. So my opinion on HOAs is that it depends on who runs them. It depends on how they handle their money. It depends on what they see their purpose as. A lot of times we can tell how, intense an HOA is going to be by how much they charge. That's number one, right? We always want to know how much they charge. Like I think in my neighborhood, it's $300 a year. And I know that mostly I'm paying for the guys who mow around the ponds, and like I'm cool with that, right? We also have restrictions around what color our roof can be. We have like 5 different options, I think. That's pretty typical here for HOAs, is what color the roof can be, which sounds crazy, but it makes sense whenever you think about it. So usually roofers know that, and they check the documents where they check with the person. It's pretty common for this to happen. Oh, excuse me. Okay, and then HOAs often help everyone to have a nice property, which will keep your property value up. If you want a new house, meaning one that was built in this century and not last century, you will have an HOA. Most likely, it's very difficult to find a home that doesn't have an HOA in Norman that was built from 2000 to present day. Like, that's just going to happen. So I live in an HOA. I don't have a problem with it. Some of them are much more restrictive than others. And that's not even getting into condos and townhomes and how their HOAs work. So, and condos especially, you need to know how much money they have in their, but like how much money they have in the bank. That's really, really important for condos, less so for just like a normal neighborhood. I've had a lot of questions recently about gravel roads. There are neighborhoods, not in Norman, but in Blanchard especially, where the neighborhood is on a gravel road, and everyone assumes that it's going to be paved, and it's not, because the county can't take that on, and probably the homeowners don't want to pay that. I mean, to pave a road is extremely pricey, so that happens a lot. And so then they'll have a road agreement, because it's a private road, to keep the road up. So long answer, what do I think about HOAs? I think if you want a new house and you want a normal city lot, you don't really have a choice. That's me being me. And then if you don't want one, then we have to talk more about your location and where you want to be. So that is my 2 cents. I get what they're for. And I know that not everyone loves them. So I do understand that. Great question. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. Let me do this. Cool. All right. So we were talking about where Norman is. Let me go back over here to my notes. College community. That's what I was talking about. All right. So we were talking about where the college is. Here we go. Awesome. Just like this. Okay. So like this is Gaylord, which is the Palace on the Prairie, i.e. the place where they play football. I love that we were playing Maine last weekend. That was funny to me. Maine is so far, but I love Maine. I mean, I love visiting Maine. But here is where campus is, and then this oddly like offset road, this is going to be downtown. It's offset because of the train. And um, a couple of things. It's really fun that you can walk from campus to downtown. It's a really cool thing about Norman. Like, I like that a lot. I have definitely parked in downtown, walked all the way to campus, and I usually like walk to the dorms and back. Now, whenever I was in school, the dorms were like these terrible towers that we lived in, and like the room was like this big, and I had a roommate. Meaning, my like this room is really small, and I had a roommate. And now they're like these fancy, like Harry Potter version of dorms. So they all get the fancy version. Good for them. Good for them. But that's definitely not what we had going to school. So that's one thing I really like. So if you live around this area, then it's more walkable than other areas. It's like for my house, I'm not gonna walk to campus. I mean, I have before, but for other reasons, like I was training for something. But it's just too far. But if you live on any of these streets, like from Lindsay up to Main Street, like you can walk really easily to campus or downtown. I think that's really cool. I kind of want to live in that kind of area, but I also really like my house here in this area. So, ever since though they redid James Garner and now I can drive more easily to downtown, that's actually really nice. So, here's what they did on James Garner, which is pretty funny sometimes, but you can't see it very well. Here, let me zoom in for you. So, we have a new traffic circle in town. This is just a good time, guys. So here's the traffic circle. I know it's very small on the screen. Let me make it bigger. There we go. All right. So here's a traffic circle. This is a really common way to get through town. This is Flood Avenue. So typically before you would drive down Flood and it would go like this. And then you would like turn into downtown, like down Acres, which is right by the library. Or you would go all the way down to Main Street and turn down. So now they've made it where I can drive and get on this traffic circle and go down James Garner and be in downtown immediately. I love that because I like to get to downtown very quickly. When Gray Street is two ways, I will be just over the moon. They're working on it diligently and they have completely torn up the road. So hopefully that's very soon for Gray Owl's sake, which is my favorite coffee shop. And so I really like that they did this. Now, the reason I laugh is because Americans have a really hard time with traffic circles. I used to live out of the country and we had a lot of traffic circles because it's a good way to move traffic because you don't have to stop. But I fear for my life sometimes whenever I enter this traffic circle. It looks so small. It feels bigger than this, but it's quite small. But it's a really great way to get into downtown on James Garner there. So I really like that about it. So that is fun. Another great thing about living in a university town is that it feels young and not in like a bad way, in a good way. Like people think that the whole town is just taken over by students, and that's just not the case. Students are everywhere. They can be, but they don't wander too far from campus. And I didn't either whenever I was a student. So just know that like it's a college town, but it's also a big city for Oklahoma, not for other places. And it's not as bad as some people like to make it out to be. I can go all day without seeing a student. Meaning all day without seeing a Texas tag. Because that's a lot of the time what we're seeing. All right. Very good. Okay, museums. This is another point of mine. A lot of people don't care about my museum conversation. We have two really good museums here in Norman. There's actually more than that. We have two museums that are quite popular, and there are more museums than that. I just think it's nice to have access whenever you want it. And that's because of the university. So to me, that's a really good thing. And then our park system. I really like the way that the city runs the park system. I'm going to bring this up here. Norman Parks. Okay. So this is the Norman website. And Like, if you're thinking about living here, or maybe you've lived here and you've never gotten on this website, like, go look at it. Like, we pay for this. This is our tax money. Like, go look at it. It's awesome. You can see what's going on and really get a feel for the community in a different way. So different parks. You can rent a park, which our company did a couple last week to have a trunk or treat. That was fun. There's Griffin, which was one of the bigger parks. So here's the community parks. Andrews. What is Andrews? My brain's not bringing that one up right now. Reeves Park, which is where our Renaissance Fair? Yeah, medieval fair? What do they call it? I don't know if it's Renaissance or medieval. It's one of those. Griffin is where a lot of kids play soccer. Griffin is also connected to Sutton, which is where I do most of my walking. Griffin Park has a really good dog park and a really good disc golf course also. Saxon Park, where are they saying that is? Oh, yes. I don't walk down here as much as I probably should, but that's just because I don't want to drive all the way to South Norman because I live in North Norman. But Saxon is like a gravel walking trail. I think I've walked it once, but I've not like the last time I lived in South Norman was like 10 years ago. So it kind of makes sense that I wouldn't, but it may be fun just to have a change of scenery. But just something to think about. But if you do live in South Norman, it's a great spot to have some trees because there aren't many sometimes. And then Ruby Grant Park. So this is one of the newest parks here in Norman. And they have all this stuff like the picnic pavilion. They have a memorial, of course. Ruby Grant was like, that's the family, the Grant family who owned this. So it was a farm at one point. Now it actually backs up to the interstate. So multi-use trails. I like the trails. There's no trees. So I only walk Ruby Grant when it's not super sunny and hot because man, it'll fry you. It is really intense. They have a really nice disc golf course. I have a whole video about Ruby Grant. The cross country track, like technically all of the trails equal a 5K, but good luck on following it because it is very difficult. And then really nice parking, and they have a really nice dog park. It's cool because this park where Griffin is all the way over on the east side, Ruby Grant is all the way over on the west side, and the playground is very beautiful. So I will give them that. And I do like parts of the walking trails because I do go walk on trails quite often. But if you haven't been on this before, this is useful. And you can really see how people are using the parks and what the city's plan is for that. To me, that's very important. If it's not important to you, that's fine. Like I totally get it. But, there's also these other parks that they have in here, like Legacy and Creekside Bike Park. Oh, it's the off-road. Oh, I remember seeing this. I didn't know that existed. Of course, I'm not really an off-roading person, but yes, that does exist as well. That's really cool. Okay. Norman does have a state park, and that's going to be, I'm going to show you, Lake Thunderbird. So that is a state park. There aren't any houses like built up next to the lake, and that's because it's like state-owned land. There's a whole thing that goes along with it. I can't remember exactly, but you can walk. A lot of people go boating out on Lake Thunderbird and fishing. So pretty common to do that. And it's pretty good access also. I am not a fan personally. I like a lot of other state parks. This is not one of my favorites. And it is really nice that Norman has one. So both are true. Both are true. The music scene. Norman is a very musically inclined city. So I'm not sure if this stems from like the university, probably a little bit, but there's always something, like always live music. It's not Austin, you guys. Like it's not gonna be Austin. It's never gonna be Austin, most likely, unless something crazy happens. but we always have live music. My friends used to go to the deli a lot. The deli is a bar, not a deli. And there's other spots as well. And of course, we have the Norman Music Fest, which last year got rained out or tornadoed out or something like that, which sucked because they work so many hours on that thing. And it's a really big festival here in Norman. But Norman does have a music scene. And if you're used to Austin or something like that, it's not going to add up to that. But it's not nothing either. So that is very useful. I kind of like, I am not a live music person. Not because I don't like music, but just because I am not a fan of crowds or humans. No, I'm just joking. I do like people. It just depends on the situation. I'm more of a cafe person and more of a like let's go sit somewhere and think quietly to ourselves. But not only that, but I just like enjoying a space. So I do like that in Norman we have some pretty good spaces that we can do that, accessible spots. So some of those spots for me have been, I'll just show you here, have been some of these. So these are some different, we have a ton of these different coffee shops and things. This is important to me. It may not be important to you, and I totally get that. I haven't been to this Daily Grinds. I don't even know. Oh, it just recently opened. That would make a lot of sense. So for me, it's important when I go in a coffee shop that it's not cold. Not cold as in like temperature, but like that it's cozy. Like that's really important to me. Second Wind is on campus. I used to go there a lot whenever I was in school, and now I don't because I'm not in school. Yay. Beanstalk is a local spot. I don't like the interior, but I really love the coffee itself. So I won't sit in there, but I will order coffee to go. And then they have a downtown spot, which I really need to go into and see if it's cozy because I doubt it. But because that there used to be another coffee shop here before and it was not cozy at all. So, yep. And then we have Not Your Average Joe. I haven't been in that one. I've been in another one. Yellow Dog is a very cozy coffee shop. And then, of course, Press and Plow can be cozy depending on the day. And then Gray Owl, of course, the best coffee shop in town. So that's kind of my culture. If that's not yours, I get it. I also am a book person. So our Barnes and Noble here is really nice. We also have a local bookshop, and it's called Green Feather. So that's also very nice. And then, of course, our poor library got shut down due to construction issues. But we do have a West and an East library, and both of them are very nice as well. The library system here is fantastic. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. I know I'm a nerd. You don't have to tell me. Like, I get it. Okay. And then, and I had this conversation, so I'm gonna hit on housing here for a second because I'm a realtor. That's like what I do, right? So this is a conversation that I had recently with a person moving from not America, and or like not in the US. So we have single family homes. That is the type of housing that we have. Some people ask me about condos, and I wish that we had a more dense housing solution, but we just don't. There are some condos, but they are not everywhere. And whenever I show people our condos, they're not happy. I'll just be honest with you. Like, they don't like them. And I'm not 100% some of them are really old and some people don't like that. I get it. I get it. I get it. Like, it's not great. So some of our condos are very old. A lot of them, yeah, a lot of them are just built like not recently. So Elisa said, there's a lot of stock coming back. I'm on 12. Okay. There's actually a lot of apartments on 12, but there are some condos on 12. That's where most of the condos are going to be here in Norman. There are a few that I prefer over others, although I've never lived in any of them. Some of my friends lived in them in school. So, like, one of them is going to be the Edge condos. Some people really like them. The Edge are built like dorms, so everyone has their own bathroom and everyone has a room in there. So, like, they have 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, and 4 bedroom. I'm not a fan of those. They were built whenever I was in school, so like around 2007. And then there's some others like Cottonwood Ridge that are much older, and I have friends that own some of those, and some of them are very nice and some of them are not. All of their doors are on the interior, which is interesting because we don't really have a lot of that. And then they have the newest ones in Norman, are on 12. Whenever I say 12, sorry, I have this map up, but I'm not even showing you. Let's do this. Google Map. Okay. Here we go. All right. So I just did that video down 12th, and so you'll see a lot of them on there. So this is 12th Street right here. So this is Harbor Freight. So this is where the Goodwill is. I really like shopping at Goodwill, so that's the Goodwill I hit a lot. So there are some condos right here. And then there are some brand new condos further down as well. And those are like above some restaurants and some stores and stuff. So those weren't there like whenever I first moved here. So those are a lot newer and also more expensive. And then there's some that are south of, or just almost south of Highway 9 also, which I really like those, but they are older. So yeah. Across from TSCU. Well, yeah, at least that you just have a totally different different things that you're looking at than I do. I don't even know where the TFCU is, but I know where other things are. That's awesome. Cool. Yes. So mostly we have single family housing here in Norman. And I, in one video, talked about this, but you're going to see like this things expand. Yes, on 12th and Lindsay. Yes. Yep, 12th and Lindsay, there are some condos. There's quite a few down there and apartments as well because it's a little bit closer to campus. So you will see kind of these rings happening in ages of homes for Norman. So the closer you are into downtown, the older the homes are going to be. And you will see a lot of them that popped up in the 50s. And that was because of the war. So the war was over. People came home and had families. So you're going to find a lot of 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom homes in that. And then you have the 60s. Which there are a decent amount of mid-century homes in certain areas. Some of them still have that mid-century style, which I love. I think it's gorgeous, but not all of them are in good condition, so that sucks. And then for the 70s, that's when Norman really boomed. So Norman actually spread out over the interstate in the late 70s. And then there were 2 recessions in the 80s. So early 80s, there was one. And so Norman housing got pretty inexpensive. And then the late 80s, so like 1988, there was another recession. And the 90s were a big boom time. We will find a lot of larger homes in Norman for the 90s. Some of them have been redone. Some of them have not. Just depends on who lived there and what they wanted to do. And then where our new neighborhoods are, like down here, we're going to find new neighborhoods. I'm including Noble in this because a lot of people who live in Noble will work in Norman. And then there's a lot of new neighborhood or new housing out here as well. And then you're going to find a lot up here. So basically on the edges of town, because that's where the land is. So that's where homes are going to be built. And then on the west side, we kind of have a line here that like things can't be built too much past because it floods. So yeah. I hope that this made a lot of sense and gave you a little bit more insight into Norman itself, and hopefully it was entertaining for you as it was for me. So I will see you in a couple of weeks. Have a good one.